So now Spider-Man Homecoming is finally out. Everyone has had a chance to see it, hopefully, and if you haven't, don't watch this unless you don't care about spoilers, because this is a spoilers review. And since I forgot to do it last week, my thanks to Tugapop for giving me access to this press screening. I am so humbled and thankful for this opportunity. I only hope to get more, to give more early reviews to you guys. Tugapop, the link is in the description, check them out, they're awesome. And now for the spoilers for Spider-Man Homecoming, let's start with the big one. The Vulture is Liz's father. I was so shocked at this moment because this was the downtime, let's say, for the movie. This was one of the few instances where the movie kind of slows down a bit to give more fuel to Peter Parker's personal life when we're actually going into the homecoming dance and all. And then he gets to Liz's house and Michael Keaton opens the door and immediately my reaction was, holy shit, he got Liz and her family. But then suddenly the movie stops and they start having a normal conversation. Then Liz's mother comes in and I'm like, oh shit! And this moment can feel very familiar to the moment where Norman Osborn is Harry's father and he's also the Green Goblin, but it's played so much differently. There's not the same vibe in there. The tension is not from the same nature, and even by the end they don't play out the same at all, which I really enjoyed. But throughout this whole scene, and even in the scene following that one when they're going to the homecoming and Michael Keaton is giving them a lift towards it, and it just makes you so white knuckle. I was clenching my fists, grabbing onto my seat because the dialogue is intense. The looks that these two guys, Tom Holland and Michael Keaton, give to each other is intense. These two are fantastic, well-built characters at this point in the movie, and they continue to be after that, and it just works magically. Even the moment where he asks Liz to step out so he can give a private word to Peter, which would be what a normal parent would do because you always have that parent conversation to the boyfriend, and a conversation they do have, they don't need to say anything, they don't reference anything, they don't foreshadow to anything. It's beautiful storytelling, editing, acting, writing, directing, because at this moment John Watts lingers the shot on either Michael Keaton or Tom Holland as much as he can, when in some films you would probably go back and forth between shots very quickly. This just lingers on and builds on that. And I do love that by the end of the film, keeping true to Adrian Toomes' character, even when he's in prison and he meets Scorpion, yes, that's going to be Scorpion, he has this thing on his arm that's kind of weird, so let's see. But he owes Spider-Man because he saved Liz's life in Washington. So throughout this whole conversation I was thinking, you do owe him your daughter's life. So I love that they kept that character aspect through, even after that final battle sequence, even after Spider-Man throws him in jail, even after he destroys his family life. I think that was a very well done character arc. But we'll get to other moments in a few. I want to talk about Peter Parker and Spider-Man and the balance that the movie gives to both. Because the movie, whenever it's focusing on Peter Parker or focusing on Spider-Man, it never forgets about the other identity of Peter Parker. There are small moments, but very significant in this movie, that are really, really well done. For instance, when he goes after the Shockers when they're selling their stuff under the bridge to Donald Glover, and Peter has to leave the party, you have a moment where he has just put on the suit, he still has to put on the mask, and he just looks at the party where he wishes he could be to prove Flash wrong, to be with Liz, to be with Ned. And you have Peter suffering because of this, because he has struggles balancing these two lives that he has. Or when the Vulture collapses the buildings with his glider wings, and Peter is just looking at this puddle of water and one half of his face is reflecting, and then you have the mask on the puddle of water. It's just a beautiful shot that when it came in, I was at the movie theater and I thought, that is fucking beautiful, man. Congratulations, John Watts. And as I spoke about in my spoilers review, every beat of this narrative is focused on Peter Parker and his perspective. Even the fantastic boat sequence, which we saw a lot of in the trailer, but there was a lot more to that in the film itself. And you see Spider-Man, he just wants to help. His genuine pure heart just commends him to help people. He doesn't want to brag. He's not necessarily even doing that to be in the Avengers, but it's his nature. He's a good person, and he is a teenager throughout this whole film. He makes the stupidest mistakes you can think of. He is pretty reckless at some points. When he's going after the Shockers, the way he destroys that treehouse, the way he clashes into that pool, into that party, and then the way he scares those girls unintentionally. It's just very good storytelling and very good understanding of this character. I also love that Peter is such a uber nerd in this film. I love that he keeps texting Happy and you see all the messages that he sent him and Happy is not replying. You see that Happy is kind of getting annoyed at him, but then you see that Happy, even in the end, recognizes his efforts and the purity of his heart, and you see Happy humbling himself towards him. Even that scene in the bathroom, that works so incredibly well. It's so good to see the relationship between these two getting very well fleshed out throughout the film when they're practically barely on screen together. The very beginning of this movie, where you see Peter recording everything about his trip to Berlin and his time fighting the Avengers and with the Avengers, and Happy always nagging him, always annoyed at him. It's just beautiful progression of characters. And speaking of teenagers, the John Hughes vibe is felt throughout this film. In that sequence when he's going after the Shockers, in the sequence when they go to Washington DC and Spider-Man is on the phone in his Spider-Man suit running with the backpack towards the Washington building. But not only him, but the whole students feel like straight out of John Hughes movies. Ned is the best friend to Peter Parker, and you feel that. You feel that friendship because it's rare they don't do anything together in this movie. Ned helps him with the suit when he's taking out the school trials or whatever it was called mode of the suit. He helps him enable the full-on Avenger version of how the suit works, and that leads into some great comedy. The relationships between all the teenagers, the fact that Flash Thompson, Tony Revolori, is playing this very different version of Flash because he's a bully, because he's confident about himself, because he's rich, and because Peter is a smart man with not such a big income into his household. He takes advantage of that and even calls him Penis Parker, which can be seen as a metaphor for his manhood and about how Flash sees himself more of a man than... I'm not getting into that, I'm sorry. But even Liz, the very fact that the Vulture is her father shows that she is not perfect as the boys in the school see her. And I thought that's what gives the character a lot of charm, especially when you start seeing that she also cares a lot for Peter. We know that the Vulture, before getting the Chitauri weaponry, he was just a blue-collar guy, and so you know that Liz has come from a very humble household before her father started making money. And I think we gotta commend that type of character work because there's a very diverse cast. There are even foreign students when they go to Washington DC, and there's never a reference to it. These students are just students who are there, and there's not a reference to race or gender or age or body type or anything. You just see these people for who they are. Teenagers, and they look like teenagers, and they act like teenagers, and they talk like teenagers. And as teenagers, you see that they are also very flawed. As good people as they might be, or as bad people as they might be, they are all flawed and human beings because they are participating in this contest for very intelligent people. But then you also see them sneaking out into the pool at night where they should be sleeping and resting for the following day's competition. But you see them enjoying life, having fun, having parties at Lisa's house, hanging out by the pool where they should be sleeping, and doing all these reckless and irresponsible things that give this very pure heart to the movie as a whole. I gotta talk about the sequence where Peter is trapped inside damage control and he unlocks the suit and he starts talking to Karen. This sequence had me crying of so much laughter. It is so good, and I love all the type of webbing that he has. I love everything about the scene, and I love the suit itself. I'm guessing a lot of people would be 50-50 on that, but I love the suit itself because this movie understands that Peter is a teenager. He understands that he comes from a very humble household, and the movie understands that it needs to ground this Spider-Man under his circumstances as it did the other Avengers and the other heroes in the MCU. So the Peter in this movie creates his webs during chemistry class in school. The Peter in this movie has the help of a suit created by Tony Stark, but a suit that is his through and through. Sure, it has a little bit more technology to aid him, but he is the hero. The suit is a mere tool. Just like special effects in a movie are a tool to tell a story, the suit in this movie are a tool to help Peter be a better hero. But he is the hero. So much that it plays into the thematic of the film that I talked about in my spoilers-free review that was beautiful, and that is the kind of meta-commentary that Peter in this movie needs to prove to Tony Stark, to the world, to us, the audience, that he is Spider-Man. So much so that the final battle sequence of the film, where he goes after the Vulture, airplane, after the Tony Stark equipment and whatnot, he's using his normal suit, the suit he used before he got the suit from Tony Stark, which, let's face it, it's a very blatant reference to Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider. And that last fight sequence, even after they crash down at the beach and they are fighting and Vulture just wants to fly away, there was a build to that, the fact that his wings were going to explode with Ned's piece of Chitauri weaponry. You see Spider-Man not letting him go, and a very smart decision on the filmmakers of not killing the Vulture off, because Michael Keaton was an incredible villain full of understandable motivations in this film, and he played a great role and he made a great character. He gave a lot to the character in this film. And the fact that we see Peter saving him, but then just leaving him there and leaving a note and all, it's so purely Spider-Man. I friggin' love it. But now let's go to that moment that I spoke about in my spoilers-free review, when Peter is leaving Homecoming to go and fight the Vulture, stop him from stealing the airplane, and then you have Shocker punching him and throwing him against buses. He's completely kicking the shit out of Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man is about to be punched again, and you see a web stops the Shocker. At this moment, my heart completely sank, and I was like, oh shit, Miles, or something. My brain just stopped. I didn't care if it made sense or not at that very second. I just thought Miles, because a few scenes earlier we just had Aaron Davis reference that he had a nephew living in his neighborhood. We all know his nephew is Miles Morales. It wouldn't make sense for him to be in this movie, but again, I just didn't think. I just had an orgasm at that moment, and then it was Ned with the web shooters. It was still friggin' awesome. I still loved it, but man, did my brain and heart stop. And the ending of this movie, May finds out that he's Spider-Man not because he reveals it to her, but because she just happens to walk across his room and the door is open and he's dressing on the suit because he's super happy that he has the suit back. What the f— That is one of the best swear cuts I have seen in film. On Spider-Man Homecoming 2, let's call it that for now, it might not work, I'll be the first one to say that. But for this movie, for how his relationship is with Aunt May, she's very spunky. I love Aunt May in this movie. And the movie understands what is good humor and bad humor. Even in that scene where they're eating Thai, and she puts out this pun about larb, that she larbs Peter. And then the waiter is throwing himself at her, and Peter throws back at her that the waiter larbs her. And this movie knows. This movie knows good humor and bad humor, and this movie is throughout very funny. Another Easter egg I found is that that last suit that Tony Stark wants to give to Peter looks a lot like the Superior Spider-Man suit. So I was expecting them to throw a kind of reference to that in words, but they didn't, and I kind of prefer it that way, to be honest. When he has the suit unlocked, he closes his eyes and they become black with this red dot at the center. And I don't remember what mode that was called, but it looks a lot like Scarlet Spider, Kane. Not Ben Reilly, Kane. But also Tony Stark. He plays this very good and organic father figure. He wasn't in the movie too much. He didn't do or say anything that you shouldn't see Tony Stark doing in this film because of the relationship he has with Spider-Man, and I thought it was very well done. In fact, I love the detail that the first time Tony Stark or Iron Man come into the picture and they save Peter from the lake, Tony Stark isn't even on there. He's doing his own thing. Maybe trying to recruit some new Avengers in India. Yes, Michelle is MJ played by Zendaya. I don't know how I can work with that. Let's see in Spider-Man Homecoming 2. But yes, I love Spider-Man Homecoming. I love all these details about it. I love how pure Peter Parker in this movie, how unsure of himself Spider-Man is in this movie. But yeah, those are all the spoilers I remember to talk about. But let me know if I forgot something. Let me know what spoilers you want to talk about. What did you like about this movie? What you didn't? Thank you so much for watching, my beautiful geekies. You guys are the best. I hope you enjoy Spider-Man Homecoming as much as me, maybe even more. Thank you once again to Tuga Pop for sending me to this press screening, and you guys are the freaking best. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything. And this Sunday I have my Geek Classic review for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes Before War this coming week, so I hope to see you there. And until then, you stay beautiful, you stay geeky, and if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button and the bell so you can be geeky united!